It was another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages, nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks, good afternoon and welcome to the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN, the actual second show of the year. So actually, Ted, we did see each other last Thursday. I did Political Thursday from Cameo Studios, but I did see you last Thursday.
Oh.
So this is it. We thought today was the first day we saw each other in the new year. No. But back at the palatial but not overly ostentatious studios here, WCRN Studios, high atop the Carberry Towers in Westboro. You can join the conversation for the remainder of for the next hour, I should say, at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Our text line is up and running at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. Here we are, January 6th, and we're minutes, if not it's happening. Maybe it's happening as I'm speaking, but Donald Trump, of course, will be certified as the 47th president of the United States. So that's all happening. Yes, the Trump train, people. And Justin Trudeau on the way out to our neighbors in the north, as we affectionately like to refer to Canada as our 51st state.
He has resigned.
Yeah, it's happened, and he's well. Look, they saw, I think it was a 22-point swing towards conservatism in Canada. So the writing was on the wall there, and let's face it, he was riding on his father's coattails for a long time. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. The Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. We like to think we're the voice of reason in the center of the dial. Common sense conversation for the common sense citizen. And today is a very pivotal moment in American politics, right? And a day that will go down in history. And not for the January 6th that some people think, but we find ourselves witnessing the certification of Donald Trump as the 47th president. And it's a significant day, a day that brings both optimism and concern, depending where you are, what side of the political spectrum you happen to stand. But regardless of your allegiance, this is democracy in action. And we are about to enter another chapter in this ongoing political saga. And for the side that continually tells us the preservation of democracy, they've certainly taken a lot of steps against the preservation of democracy. Also, let's take a step back here for a moment and see where we stand, because Speaker Mike Johnson, well, he does remain with the gavel. He remains in office, navigating through tumultuous waters here of the Republican-controlled House. While President Biden continues to stammer through public appearances, often snapping at reporters with foul-mouthed tirades, it's almost as if the leader of the free world is losing his composure, folks, something we haven't seen from a sitting president, well, since last time we saw Biden. Something we haven't seen from a sitting president, seriously, in my memory of presidents in my lifetime. His behavior has raised many eyebrows. Many are questioning whether his language, demeanor, are indicative of a broader failure of leadership. I mean, that's a whole discussion. How deep is the Democratic bench? Who really is going to pick up the mantle for the Democratic side of the aisle? Akeem? President Biden's administration is still working tirelessly to undermine the achievements of the Trump administration, especially when it comes to energy policies that once put American prosperity on the rise, like towards the end of the Trump administration. Also, we've got some stuff here in the weather in the South, right? Making a lot of headlines. An unusual chill has descended over many states, while northern regions are bracing for snowstorms. And it's a reminder that while Washington deals with its unusual chaos, or I should say its usual chaos, nature doesn't care about politics. It marches to its own rhythm. Back to the headlines. Despite the best efforts of the current administration to sabotage the progress made under Trump, it's clear that there's a rising wave of discontent. This isn't just about policies, it's about the direction America is heading. Now, today's show is not just about recounting the news, it's about exploring what these events mean for our future. The political storm is far from over, and as always, we'll be diving deep into the issues, giving an analysis, and most importantly, the conversation that cuts through some of the noise here. And it is caller participation. So stay with me, folks. We've got a lot to discuss, and you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available. The Joe Mangiacotti Show, where common sense does take the lead, we hope. Text line 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. So there is a lot to talk about. And Biden's outburst, we've seen him do this, right? When he called Peter Doocy stupid SOB, the way he talks, and his legacy's in shambles. And in a very bizarre and frankly troubling moment this past Sunday evening, Joe Biden lost his composure during a press conference, lashing out at reporters in a fit of frustration. His comments, delivered in a rambling tirade, were laced with profanity and aimed at anyone who dared question his administration or his age or his ability. What we witnessed was not just a president struggling with the weight of the office, but a leader clearly losing touch with both reality and the American people. And as a whole, I think the Democratic Party isn't just out of touch with the American people. Isn't that not evident with the landslide victory? And we'll get into this because there are actually pundits on the left trying to tell you, gaslighting you, that it wasn't a landslide. And Trump really didn't do as good as he did, by the way. And it wasn't that Trump won, it was Harris lost. But we can talk more about that. But when a reporter asked Biden if he still considered white supremacy the greatest threat to the United States, his response was more incoherent than insightful. His rambling answer, which attempted to make an ill-conceived case for America's multiculturalism, it veered off course big time as he spoke about his Irish ancestry in ways of immigrants who've come to this country. You know, it always is about him. It always comes back to little Uncle Joe, right? Well, it's as though Biden was under the impression that his personal family history somehow validated his border policies, a narrative that does little to address the real and urgent crisis on the southern border created by his administration and his minions. And as we, not that we find out, because those of you who join me here on a regular basis on this show, probably on this station, we know he hasn't been at the helm for a long time, if ever. But now we actually have people going on record talking about and admitting to the fact that he was handled from day one, that he actually isn't the one making the decisions. He doesn't have the ability, the cognitive ability, the wherewithal to analyze, digest, and make rational decisions. Biden's attempt to deflect responsibility for the migrant surge that continues to overwhelm the nation's border and its borders agents is both laughable and troubling. See, he claimed without evidence that the numbers of migrants had decreased when he took office. Yet this is starkly contradicted by the flood of illegal crossings under his administration. In other words, reality. Biden's attempt to shift blame to Republicans, and bizarrely, Trump, is a weak defense of an even weaker border or in border policy. In this moment, he sounded less like a president in control and more like a man who's grasping at straws to avoid accountability and to save any shred of legacy. But what was even more jarring was Biden's profanity laced outburst, in which he claimed that his international experience gave him unique insight into how world leaders think. Insight that apparently those reporters could never hope to achieve. You know how they think, he snapped, adding that his global experience made him uniquely qualified to lead the nation. This was a troubling statement for many reasons. First, it reveals a dangerous level of arrogance. Second, it exposes a president who seems completely out of touch with the challenges that America is facing today. And when he says how he has met somebody and he's been around so long, you're just drawing attention to your age, not the good part of age called experience and wisdom. That ship sailed, folks. Biden's frustration with reporters didn't end there. When asked whether he still believed Donald Trump posed a threat to democracy, Biden reiterated his tired narrative about the Capitol riot, offering no new evidence or insight into why Trump remains such a boogeyman for the left. Yeah. What's more concerning, however, is Biden's apparent inability to address the real threats facing the nation under his own administration. From a deteriorating economy to an increasingly hostile international environment, Biden's rhetoric about white supremacy and Trump's supposed threats to democracy feels like smokescreen to distract from his own failures. As the 82-year-old president nears the end of his term, his political calculus is becoming clearer. He's unraveling. Reports now suggest Biden regrets his decision to tap Merrick Garland as Attorney General, a regret shared by many Americans who have watched as Garland failed to adequately address the crimes committed by political elites, including Trump's alleged wrongdoings, right? This growing frustration is evident in Biden's outbursts. And what's more alarming is the realization that he has no coherent plan to the end or to end his presidency on a high note. Folks, we have to take our first break here on the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show at AM 830 WCRN 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Stick with us. We'll be back in 2 and 10.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own, but MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
Perner Logging and Land Clearing, fully equipped with state-of-the-art equipment to handle all of your lot and land clearing needs, whether it's 1 acre or 100. They regularly service customers in the local area and will travel to neighboring communities and beyond to get the job done. Now, whether you're doing new construction, renovations, or clearing land for a new development, the Perner Logging and Land Clearing team of experienced personnel makes small or large jobs run efficiently, giving them the ability to always keep the competitive edge. They'll quote your job from something small to hundreds of acres, factoring in all aspects, including the wood salvage value, if any. In addition, they have the right equipment for each size job, making for the most efficient job site possible. For every job, Perner Logging and Land Clearing make sure the client's goals are the main objective. Call Perner Logging and Land Clearing today for a free estimate, 978-270-9916. That's 978-270-9916.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second segment of the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here at AM 830 WCRN. As we speak, they're doing their thing to certify the election, and Donald Trump officially becomes the 47th president. Well, barring the inauguration on the 20th, and that can't come soon enough. Interesting that Kamala Harris, one of the very few times that someone is presiding over the certification of the person they lost the presidency to. It's happened a couple of times because, of course, vice presidents, who are always the president of the Senate, have run for president and lost in the past. But it's happening now. Ted, you want to jump in?
Did you see that when she was leading the Senate in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Oh, she forgot.
She got it wrong.
She skipped over a few sentences. Yeah. And you know what's interesting in that is she knew she has to do that. And if you don't have it, and I don't know, I mean, I'm at the generation we did that. We still did that every morning at school. So I think it's just programmed in the DNA. Right. It's like saying Our Father or something, you know, the Lord's Prayer or once you start it, you can go do other things because it's automatically coming out. It's pre-programmed. But it's amazing that she forgot that. So that's interesting. Of course, he'll be certified by the time I get off the air here. So that's happening now. A lot of political changes around the globe in the shift from liberal and leftist and progressive to more conservative stuff. We're seeing it happen everywhere. But final thought on segment one here: the American people, they deserve better than the erratic behavior and lack of leadership that we're seeing, I should say, from the current president. Biden's inability to manage his temper has failed policies, and his growing sense of detachment from reality paint a disturbing picture of a leader on the brink of failure. And as we look ahead to the coming months, it's clear that a change of leadership cannot come soon enough. And the time for a steady hand, grounded in common sense and focused on addressing the real issues facing the nation, is now. And Biden has proven time and time again that he's not up to the task. The question is, how much longer can America afford to suffer under this kind of leadership? And for a second, don't even think that Donald Trump has been chilling for these last 4 years, just chilling out at Mar-a-Lago in Bedminster or wherever, many of his properties and golf courses. He's had 4 years to think about everything, to plan everything. We've seen the difference this term coming in, the speed in which these candidates, the nominations for these positions have come out of Mar-a-Lago. And that they're not coming from, as they did in his first term, from the suggestions of the swamp creatures. They're coming from people that he knows. He's coming from people that you wouldn't expect it. And I'm for one, happy that people being nominated to run, say, the Department of Defense isn't a defense contractor, but an actual soldier. So he took this time, I think, to mature as a president, to become more presidential without losing the Donald Trump-esque type of way. But we have to establish a new term for the old hit the ground running, because he's taken hit the ground running to a new level. And the fact that Joe Biden is talking about the regret, right? The one regret that he vocalizes is that he didn't pick an attorney general, i.e. Merrick Garland, who didn't prosecute Trump fast enough and hard enough, but went after his crime-laden son. How much more banana republic can that be? And speaking of all that, right, the FBI's misplaced priorities here, targeting Americans instead of real terrorists. Now, these recent tragic events in New Orleans, it does serve as a stark reminder of how critical it is for law enforcement agencies to focus their attention on real threats. On Wednesday morning, a radical Islamic terrorist, Shazam Din Jabbar, drove his truck through a crowd celebrating the new year, killing 15 people, injuring over 35. Jabbar, who had recently converted to Islam, was reportedly acting erratically in the months leading up to the attack. But instead of dedicating resources to tracking individuals like Jabbar, who are clearly on a path to radicalization, the FBI under Director Christopher Wray seemed more focused on targeting everyday Americans, including parents, Trump supporters, pro-life activists, including, remember the guy who got convicted for just praying silently in front of an abortion clinic? That's if that's not the epitome of Orwellian behavior, what is? This misplaced prioritization on domestic dissidents over legitimate terrorists in the legitimate terrorist threats has been a growing concern. In the case of Jabbar, the FBI failed to detect the signs of his radicalization. Reports suggest that while Jabbar was becoming increasingly erratic, the FBI was distracted by investigating individuals and groups that posed no real threat to national security. A key example of this diversion of resources is the FBI's focus on Catholics. Leaked documents revealed that the FBI was investigating Catholics who attended Latin Mass, labeling them as potential domestic terrorists due to concerns over white supremacy and alleged radicalism. What does a radical Catholic look like, by the way? I mean, that would be any of my Irish aunts would be radical Catholics. I don't know.
I can name 6 of my relatives.
I mean, there's holy water all over the house, and they all baked a lot of Irish soda bread. I don't know what a radical Catholic is up to in today's times. The agency even employed informants to infiltrate these communities. Wow. Meanwhile, right, while all this is going on, the FBI was also obsessing over Trump supporters. Following, you got it, January 6th Capitol riot. Nearly 2/3 of the FBI's investigations were focused on those accused of violating anti-riot laws, diverting critical attention from the real threats. The FBI created a new category, by the way, anti-government or anti-authority violent extremists. Someone was proud of themselves that day. And these are to investigate political violence tied to Trump supporters specifically. Instead of concentrating on those who were planning real acts of terror, the FBI allowed political affiliations to determine who was investigated. Much like FEMA determined who got aid based on what yard sign you had. The FBI's overreach extended even further with its surveillance of parents attending school board meetings. Right? Remember? 2021, after the National School Board Association pushed for counterterrorism measures, the Department of Justice directed the FBI to track parents who were protesting school policies. These parents, upset over issues such as mask mandates and the teaching of controversial content, they were very unfairly treated as potential threats. One mother was reported to the FBI simply for voicing her concerns at a school board meeting. Rather than focusing on potential terrorist plots, the FBI chose to surveil citizens standing up for their rights. How dare you? In addition to these missteps, the FBI also targeted pro-life activists, including 55 individuals who engaged in peaceful protest at abortion facilities. Now, folks, and I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. This isn't the rank and file agent, special agent, who joins the FBI based on the charter of the FBI, the mission of the FBI. These things are coming from a cancer within the FBI that has developed and spread somewhat. And that, like any other cancer, needs to be cut out or neutralized. Kash Patel is a guy that knows how to find these things. He's proven that at the DOD. He's proven that in other places within our government. So when I'm talking about all of this, I'm talking about the leadership that sets these policies. They're the problem, not the average rank and file agent. And I would go to maybe not to Quantico, but I'd go pull some agents from Nebraska, some out of the way offices, and maybe bring them to Washington. And again, why not? They want billions of dollars for a new building. The one in Georgia is perfectly fine. But the agency pursued these cases with vigor, even as attacks on pro-life senators surged. In one instance, a 75-year-old woman, Paulette Harlow, she was sentenced to 2 years in prison, 75 years old, 2 years in prison after praying at an abortion clinic. Meanwhile, actual terrorist activities and attacks went largely ignored, showing a disturbing lack of focus on the nation's real security threats.
During this time, don't forget, the church of our presidents was on fire.
Yeah, that was set afire. And somehow they tried to make it that it was Trump's fault because he walked across Lafayette Park. But perhaps the most egregious example of the FBI's misplaced priorities came in its pursuit of grandmothers like Rebecca Lavarnz. She was a 71-year-old woman who entered the Capitol building for 10 minutes on January 6th. Lavarnz was later convicted on 4 counts related to her brief visit with 2 FBI agents showing up at her home, placing her on probation for 1 year. This kind of enforcement seems disproportionate, especially when compared to the FBI's lack of focus on terrorist radicalization unfolding within the U.S. We have to take a mid-show break here, folks. Sorry about that. 508-871-7000. 508-871-7000. Back in 2 and 10.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. We're keeping it cool today and really for the whole week. Coming up, expect highs in the upper 20s to about 30 degrees under mostly cloudy skies. I don't have precipitation in the forecast this week, but I do have a lot of wind and cold for the next few days. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, wake-up wind chills will be near 0, and afternoon wind chills will be stuck in the teens. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and you can hear Boston 25 live for the Morning Drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
More live and local radio is next. Stay tuned to Radio Central, 830 WCRN.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. But MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the Monday afternoon edition here of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on Radio Central, AM 830 WCRN, from the center of the dial, the center of information in the center of New England. It is AM 830 WCRN. You can join the conversation for the remainder of the hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. And I wanted to finish my thought on the FBI's failure to prioritize national security and to combat terrorism at its source. It's very troubling. And while law enforcement was busy investigating parents and religious groups and political dissidents, a terrorist on U.S. soil was able to carry out a deadly attack. So the question must be asked, how many lives could have been saved if the FBI had used its resources to investigate actual terrorists like Jabbar, rather than pursuing politically motivated investigations against law-abiding citizens? In the end, the FBI's actions reflect a disturbing trend on targeting ordinary citizens while failing to confront the growing threat of radical Islamic terrorism. This imbalance in law enforcement priorities, well, it needs to be corrected. As the safety of American people must always come first, the tragic of events in New Orleans are a clear example of consequences of the FBI's misplaced focus. So it's time for the agency to refocus its efforts on combating real terrorism and safeguarding the nation from harm. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. What say you? 508-871-7000. Let's go to the phones. Ken's been waiting patiently. Happy New Year, Ken. What say you?
Same to you, Joe and Ted. And I thought I would start off the new year on the light side. Some of that Ted did for me when I called. And first, ask you the question: did you post the vote on Friday for the speaker? The speech by Hakeem Jeffries.
No, I did not. What did little Hakeem have to say?
You missed the faux pas.
Oh yes, I saw the clips. I saw the clips. It was reminiscent of Swalwell.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he said he called on his party members to fight hard for freedom.
yeah, I did catch.
Well, I dare say I think Ted should get a 5-second clip of that when it's appropriate. When we need a lighter thing to talk about. There you go.
Man.
The words directly. So that was interesting.
So they I don't know. Did they certify? Are you dual watching things? I don't have it on in the studio. Have they done it? Has Kamala certified the Trump administration? Has she done her job as president of the Senate yet?
I haven't followed it all because it's so certain, especially after, they changed the rules.
They always change the rules.
No, I mean specific as to challenging the electoral accounts by state.
Mm-hmm.
So it used to be that to bring up a motion of debate, you had to have one House member and one Senate member agree to challenge a particular state. Well, now they need 20% of the members of the House and the Senate to do that. So that wipes out any challenges, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and it was the Democrats that pushed that through, and
Yeah.
they were told, you will regret this.
Yeah. Well, it often happens. I mean, every time something like this comes up, Ken, I remember Ted Kennedy here in Massachusetts, because we flip-flop between when a senator leaves office or passes away in office, that it would be the governor could appoint, then it went to a special election, then governor and special. And Ted Kennedy was the one that keep flipping it. And then when we went to Republican governor, he got it back to the special election because he was afraid, well, that's just going to be an automatic Republican gets in there. And of course, he passed away. And that's how Scott Brown got in on the special election. So it's just always kind of like, just leave this stuff alone, guys, right? Because you're too smart for your own good when you start playing that game.
Absolutely. And so we march on, and the next challenge is going to be March, but I'm hearing today it's actually going to be April. meaning the next budget battle, because they did a CR a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, which was remember that 1,500 pages. Look, this is also, I'm understanding that Trump really wants this one et al. Type bill to address the debt ceiling, the budget, the border, agents, everything. And that's a big order. That's a big order. And he put a lot of faith in Mike Johnson because he made the phone calls last week. Remember that. He intervened to keep Mike Johnson with the gavel. But he also wanted to make sure that certification went smooth today, too.
Yeah, and he's going to have to take the lead. It was interesting how Nancy Mace was the lead in that. I think she called Trump and then hooked Trump up with Johnson to talk to the two holdouts. And then they ultimately, moved forward because he said, hey, we got a lot to do. You're just holding things up.
Yeah. And I'm going to make sure everybody knows who held this up.
So the timetable, as it's laid out, originally they were saying mid-March. And I don't know if there's a specific trigger that they have to act by, and maybe as much as just having another CR to get to a hopeful date by which to have one package, because getting to the parliamentarian in the Senate may not allow that for wiping out the filibuster. I think it's usually just once a year. It's been a long time since it's been, you get 2 bites at an apple per year. That sounds strange, 2 bites per year at an apple, but that's effectively how it works. And so they're now pushing for like the first week of April because Matt Gaetz' seat gets filled on April 1st on a special election. And I believe the same date I know it is, because the other Florida House member who is likely to be in the cabinet, I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head, but they'll effectively had 2 more seats, and they need every seat they can get.
Yeah, that was actually a concern, right? Because Trump kept tapping sitting Congress people for these jobs, for these positions in the cabinet. Right. And, if you have 13, 14 plus margin, maybe that's, you don't worry about. When you have 2 or 3 seat margin, guys, there's no guarantee those elections are going your way. Now, granted, they might be in a very conservative or Republican district. There's maybe the momentum from the election kind of ensures it, but it doesn't, right? It doesn't. So it could be.
I'm remembering the name now. It was Waltz is from Florida.
Yeah.
And then Stefanik from New York, her seat needs to be filled too, but that may take a while. Yeah. But each is, Waltz is very certain to remain Republican. Stefanik is like the strongest Republican district in New York.
Yeah. Again, none of these are guaranteed, folks. There was, I think, on November 5th, we had a very overwhelming mutual understanding among all of us that we needed to go out and change the direction of the country on all levels, down ticket too. And that happened. I don't know if that momentum will carry through to special elections, so I'm always nervous about that, but let's see what happens.
Yeah, it's amazing how the Dems' message has gone from this big risk to democracy, existential threat. Now they want to deal with them.
Well, just look at the pilgrimages taking place to Mar-a-Lago and who's doing those pilgrimages,
Well, there's a simple explanation as to they want that message that they want to deal with them, because the last thing they want is for Republicans to succeed on their own and not need a Democrat vote.
Yeah, that's true.
So effectively, that's the big challenge for the Republicans is if you do that, that creates momentum going forward. If you fail to, then guess what? You get a package that a lot of us are going to be holding our noses, and there isn't a second chance. You get to the second year of a last term, which is what this is. It's a new election year. It's midterms, and
Yeah, and the
hard
midterms
than it
will
was
be
this
here
year.
before we know it, guys. And you know,
We're-
and look, that was part of the little dog and pony show we saw with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, right? First of all, excuse me, that was a gift to Hillary Clinton, but also Alex Soros, right? George Soros's son was there, and that was, I mean, that was just such a blatant hand me for the money, the 140 million in midterm, and the money, just keep the spigot open and keep things running because midterms are going to be here. I mean, we're basically, Trump gets sworn in the 20th, and we start the midterms, and that's why he has got to get so much done. And this 4-year break, as I said a little while ago, Ken, Donald Trump did not chill out for any part of the last 4 years. He was planning to run the entire time. I don't care what anybody says about he was going to see, and like he said, if Biden had done a good job, he wouldn't. No. He decided the moment he lost the election in 2020, he was planning this run again, and he's been working at it, and he's been planning for it, and there's no question about it. And that's why we're seeing the speed at which things are happening. And for all intents and purposes, has he not been or has become the de facto president with everything but the official signing ability? I mean, look at Biden's recent behavior, and before he came out with this embarrassing behavior this weekend, he was out of the picture. He wasn't even around or wandering off into the rainforest. Oh, it's crazy. All right, Ken, anything else before I let you go?
Yeah, just quick, you mentioned Soros. It made me think that we on the right should be calling Biden his donor medals.
Yeah, well, they are, in essence.
And make it explicit and make people realize, hey, that's your money going back again to the donor to rip you off.
It's crazy. All right, Ken, thank you very much for the call. Always appreciated, folks. You can still join the conversation for the remainder of the hour at 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. I did want to get into a little bit about Legacy Media disrespects a grieving family, right, with this. I'll talk about it on the other side of the break. A couple more things we'll get in before we have to wrap up. We'll come back with the fourth and final segment in 2 in 10, folks. Stick with us.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. The MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
Polar Park is the place to play, so treat yourself to a private suite at the best ballpark in AAA. Suite rentals are the best way to enjoy a fully catered and climate-controlled experience at the park. Whether you choose to watch the game from inside of the suite or out in your seats, it's the ultimate experience for a special occasion. Visit WooSox.com or call 508-500-8888 to reserve your suite today.
Imagine a retirement where you're free to pursue your passions, confident in your financial decisions and positions. A prosperous future starts with the right guidance. Visit wealthandwisdom65.com. That's wealthandwisdom65.com.
Advisory services offered by Optimus Wealth Management Group, Incorporated. Insurance services offered by the Optimus Group, LLC, an affiliated company. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell or offer to sell advisory services or insurance products to any residents of any state other than the state of Massachusetts or where otherwise legally permitted.
All right, folks, welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on the Monday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. You can join the conversation for the remainder of the hour at 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. You know, on the break, Ted made an observation about, and we've talked about this on the show for the last 4 years, and basically, you know, Biden went into his presidency, and his first acts were undoing Trump executive orders and policies. But he has spent the entire presidency, his presidency, doing that. He did it in the middle, and he's doing it now. He's doing it now with selling the wall that's been left out in the desert off for pennies on the dollar. He's doing it by pumping billions of dollars into NGOs, trying to get it out the door, irreversible damage. Remember the Project Veritas got the kid on undercover camera saying it's like throwing bricks of gold off the Titanic? And now the drilling issue, right? I don't know if you caught this drilling, but they're last minute policies here. In the final days here, Joe Biden made a decision that many see as a very spiteful and politically motivated attack on the American people. And that goes back to, at what point, guys, that Joe Biden, he reversed all those Trump things, which did what it did to the border. And he continues to make these decisions. At what point do you say, stop it, get over yourself, give it a rest, do the things that are best for the American people, for the country, get over your pettiness, quite frankly, your lack of imagination and intelligence. Just stop it, for Christ's sakes. You can't go away fast enough. So these are politically motivated attacks on American people with only 2 weeks left in his presidency, as such it is. Biden invoked the Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act to place a ban on new offshore oil and gas drilling in large parts of the U.S. coastal waters, including east and west coasts, the eastern Gulf of Mexico, portions of Alaska's northern Bering Sea. Now, a lot of this won't make any difference, but it's the principle of it and the act of it.
It's the hate Trump thing again.
It is.
Drill, baby, drill.
It is. It's just anti-Trump, where he lives in bizarro world for the what's Superman, Marvel, or the other one?
Superman was DC.
DC Comics, right? They have the bizarro world. This last-minute action comes at a time when energy prices are on the minds of Americans and certainly in our wallets, many of whom are still feeling the pain, as we all are at the pump after Biden's administration spent years making the U.S. more reliant on foreign oil. And that's a national security risk, guys. Caroline Leavitt, the incoming White House press secretary, good choice. She didn't mince words in her criticism of Biden's decision. She called it a disgraceful decision designed to exact political revenge on the American people. Think about that. It's going to punish you. How dare you not put me in office? First of all, your own party did the coup, took you out of the race. And then the American people, and I swear Joe Biden at some level was happy Kamala didn't win. Not that she had a shooting chance. But disgraceful decision designed to exact political revenge on the American people. And she's absolutely right. Biden's offshore drilling ban seems less about environmental protection, more about punishing those who voted for Trump's energy policies and his mandate to reduce gas prices. And that's only done with drilling. By placing these restrictions on future offshore drilling, Biden has actively sabotaging the incoming president's efforts to reassert energy independence and lower costs for American families. I mean, I've gone through the elements of this and shows over and over about the dangers of depending on foreign oil. Just the fact, of what it takes to ship the oil from across the sea. You know how much oil and gas, diesel is required in a tanker to get that oil to? I mean, it's so beyond common sense, folks.
It's a shipload.
It is a shipload, man. Biden justified his moves by framing it as part of the broader effort to combat the climate crisis, which is such a stupid, vague, nonsensical term, and transition to a clean energy economy. But this rationale, it fails to address the harsh realities faced by everyday Americans, particularly those struggling with rising energy costs. While the transition to renewable energy is important, it cannot come at the expense of the nation's immediate energy needs, folks. As Biden sets the stage for his exit from office, it seems clear that his priorities are out of touch with the very people he was elected to serve. And Biden's attempt to lock up more federal lands from drilling is a blatant disregard for the future prosperity of the nation. While his administration pushes for clean energy, they ignore the fact that fossil fuels still make up over 80% of the global energy consumption and will for a long time, folks. And the U.S. cannot afford to unilaterally abandon its own vast energy resources. Instead of allowing America to lead the world in energy production, Biden's policies put us at a disadvantage, making us more reliant on adversaries like Russia, Iran, Venezuela for oil. This is not just bad policy, it's a national security risk. Ted, you wanted to...
The fact that they are ignoring the actual evidence that bringing in tar for processing is better than using American sweet crude, which takes far less to process.
It does.
And does a lot less damage to the local environment.
And when I refer to Iran's dirty oil or Venezuela's tar oil, I'm not being flippant. I'm trying to point out the fact that the crude that's coming out of the ground in those parts of the planet are not the quality that we actually have under our feet. That the crude that comes from our land is actually cleaner and easier to refine. So I'm not being flippant when I say Iran's dirty oil, the tar. I'm trying to illustrate the difference in the crude and that it actually, and when you take that, say the Venezuelan crude, the only places that can be refined actually are in Texas. It's the only refineries that are advanced enough that can handle that, by the way. So now we have President-elect Trump enters. And he's made energy independence a cornerstone of his platform. And Trump's campaign is promising a dramatic shift from the Biden's anti-energy policies, which, of course, was a shift from the Trump positive energy policies. So he has pledged to restore the United States position as the world's leading energy producer, with the goal of lowering energy costs, stimulating economic growth. Now, prices can't get back to where they were. They've been reset, but they can come down a little bit. And these policies will bring inflation to a screeching halt. I mean, we'll get it down to 1.4, 1.5, a healthy place. And you will see some costs come down. They won't reset to 2020, guys. But he's pledged to restore our position as the leading energy producer and the goal of lowering the cost of energy under his leadership. And the U.S. will focus on increasing domestic energy production, lifting restrictions on oil, gas, and coal, rolling back ridiculous regulations that stifle industry growth. This is the energy agenda that will ensure that Americans have access to affordable, reliable energy for decades to come. In Levitt's comments that We will drill, baby, drill, serve as a rallying cry for those who believe that the Biden administration anti-fossil fuel stance is harming the American people, folks. There's a broad support for Trump's energy policies, with recent CNBC surveys showing that most Americans are comfortable with expanding drilling in federal lands and cutting taxes and regulations to encourage business growth. And those oil companies, they pay attention to the nuances because they're not going to drop $1 billion in drilling or exploration if the carpet's going to be pulled out from under them. It's just they're not going to do it. This is the pragmatic approach that will ensure the U.S. remains competitive on the global stage while protecting American jobs and families from the soaring cost of energy. Trump's first day in office will likely see a flurry of executive orders, reversing Biden's harmful policies, which was a reversal of the Trump policies, from fast-tracking permits for drilling and fracking to securing the southern border. Trump will use the power of his pen to put America back on the path to energy independence and economic prosperity. He needs to do it legislatively, too. And as Levitt rightly pointed out, the American people will support this agenda because they know that a thriving, self-sufficient nation is one that can stand tall and face global challenges. Hey, folks, in the end, Biden's last-minute ban on offshore drilling is not only an attack on the American people, it's a desperate attempt by a lame duck president to cling to policies that have proven to be both economically and strategically disastrous. But Trump administration will waste no time on doing this damage, putting the U.S. back on the path to energy dominance. The future of American energy is clear. It will be based in innovation, not restriction, growth, not dependence, and independence, not weakness. We are about to see a new era of American energy, one that will benefit all Americans and strengthen the nation's position in the world. This has to wrap up the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Back tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock, folks. We got great programming coming, so stick with us. Joe out, folks.